Hello, hello, hello. This is OK here, and we are going to be streaming analysis of, I think, a very interesting match between Jasugi99, the favourite in the 2020 candidates, and Kingswitcher, famous Bughouse player. So let's just get straight into it. Game 1. Jasugi99 is black, so we'll look at the games from Jasugi99's perspective. And he plays A6, which arguably is wasting quite a lot of time as black. D4, and then D5, he challenges the center. Knight C3, takes, and then E5. So it's a gambit. He's potentially giving up a pawn, but white would be destabilizing his king, and the king would be quite central with queen's exchange. So the gambit is refused. Knight F6, and probably the best move here is just to take this. There's no harm turning the engine on, the match is over. I'm thinking, could you even just replace? And the answer is no, because Queen G6 is annoying. So just develop is probably best. But instead, Kingswitcher made the first blunder, Bishop G5 in game 1. And it's a blunder because of, well, what Jasugi99 did is actually to take 2 pieces for the queen. And surprisingly, although the king is destabilized on d8, having the 2 pieces are better than the queen, surprisingly. Bishop d3. And now this is Jasugi99's first blunder, because he just withdrew that knight. And maybe he's thinking, my opponent has a queen. I don't want to give my opponent a queen and a knight. He's a good Bughouse player. He knows how to use his pieces. But black has a lot of pieces himself. And knight takes f2 is strong. If king takes knight. How to continue? Knight here looks tempting, but actually much stronger is bishop here check first. If the king ever steps back to f1, there's knight at e3 forking the queen. If he steps to e2, there's knight at f4. If he steps to dark squares, you have another bishop in hand you can put on e3. So this is a really uncomfortable position. Probably the strongest defense is at e3 here, and knight takes pawn, and now you see the knight's being wasted, so you can't. The queen's under attack, it might move, throw in another check. It's an uncomfortable position. So the threat next is to take this knight, put this here maybe. Take here as well. What could... I mean, the king's kind of stuck in the middle of the board. It's not clear what to do. Yeah, h3. Knight takes g2. It's just really uncomfortable to see what you can do. Even at d2 and then knight takes g2. So yeah, knight takes f2, strong attack. But okay, Jasugi99 backed off. Queen e2, hitting the pawn. It would be good, but it does allow knight f4 at some point, and that's exactly what Jasugi99 did. He first throws in a check, just wasting a pawn. He defends his center, and then goes knight to f4. Now here's where things get really interesting. And Clearcast discussed this. Knight takes queen, as Clearcast analysed in the live stream, which sadly only lasted 2 or 3 games, because Clearcast's internet went. But this is really interesting, because there's knight f2 check, king has to sidestep in some way. Queen here check, king takes knight. Now you have a choice, you can just simply go queen takes bishop, threatening queen here checkmate next move, and say, well, I'm safe as white. But if we go directly for mate, all checks, we go there, check, takes, king takes. We have another bishop in hand, we can go bishop here. So the point is, if you run back down, the other bishop is coming in and mating you. So let's just show that. If this, we can't defend even if we get a pawn, then obviously it's mating because we have a pawn in hand, so a pawn here and a pawn here will mate. So maybe we try and defend with a knight, but that doesn't really help much either because queen cuts this off. So a knight here, knight at g5, king here, and pawn here will be checkmate. So this is just to try and show how dangerous taking the queen would have been. Now, okay, the king can run up, but then you can throw in another check, and then a very nice move is queen takes knight. And the point is, if you take it, the king is stuck in the center of the board, and white has just enough to deliver the mate. So it's cutting the king off from behind, and then the pawns come flooding up the board. Notice that if the king goes here, it's mate in 1, so you can't do that. So here, and if you go here, very nice checkmate. Knight at c8, checkmate. So you could step up, but then the pawns come. The pawns come. c4 and knight at d3 is checkmate. So this is just to illustrate how dangerous taking the queen was. Taking this pawn was also possible. King f1 and then take this knight because the knight's quite dangerous. Here and then again in this position you might think, well, I could just do this. But no, actually the best move is knight to d7, and the reason is not only hitting the queen, but also controlling this b6 square. Why does b6 square matter? Well, because if you go bishop h3, there's with diagonals, this is enough. b6 square is important because white can just push this king up the board. You can block, then here, and notice because you can't go to b5, you have to go to a dark square, and then there's queen takes pawn check, blocks. Check, you can take, but either this or even simpler, queen can come in and checkmate. So, okay, so this is just to illustrate how dangerous actually the position was actually here for Jasugi. Can't just take the queen, so things have gone. But you can take, so you can do what he did, which is take the knight first. Queen takes, and he must have been a little bit spooked, because instead of taking on g2, again these sorts of ideas would be dangerous. He took the bishop with check, and he used the bishop to defend. And again, just worth saying, the position is actually dangerous. If he'd gone bishop to d6, queen takes, bishop, pawn takes, you're getting mated. What do you drop on c7? You might think a pawn, and that's okay, but the king can kind of weasel away. And at this point, you cunningly step back. If you step this way, queen here is checkmate, but here, there's no actual mate. Okay, it's bishop takes knight, and black is completely lost, but there's a stronger move, and this is actually very instructive. Bishop at f7 in these sorts of positions, so that if the king ever steps here, you have bishop takes pawn check, and you have all these pieces streaming in. No. Bishop here, check. Again, cookie crumbing the king up the board, and actually even once more, cookie crumbing it up the board. And the point is, if you take it, you have knight here, check, and queen here, checkmate. Very pretty. You've just opened up that square. But if you don't take it, well, queen drops, queen takes, and the knight delivers mate. So this is the dangerous waters that Jasugi was finding himself in. And that's why he plays new bishop at d6, really reinforcing these dark squares, which could potentially have been weak if they hadn't been reinforced. Queen back to e2, and he hits the queen and hits g2. And actually here's actually a critical mistake. I mean, queen e2 wasn't great, but white just has a move here that black has no defense to, which is simply knight at g5. There's no way to defend this pawn. Nothing in hand. Even here, knight at g5 is not quite as strong, because black can use a knight in hand to defend. You've backed off. Black should have done this, but here, knight at g5, and Jasugi99 would have been toast in game 1. Nothing you can do. Knight takes queen, and we have the whole sort of lines that we saw earlier. I mean, not exactly, but knight takes queen, knight takes pawn, king here. Well, we have a choice, but one example would be queen here check, king takes f7. It's hard to say exactly. So apparently bishop at e8, knight takes e8, e6, and if we step e6, and if we step up, king g6, we got queen takes knight. Okay, so maybe this is not the cleanest, but just simply taking the rook apparently might be good. But anyway, the point is that white is completely winning here. We're going to go pawn f7, at e6. The moment this opens up, queen is coming in. You've got a queen and a rook, so this is really toast. And black only has a queen in hand, so there's no attack on the white king. So knight g5, brilliant move, but it was missed. And now Jasugi99 took over, game 1. So harassing the queen, and then he takes over. And I'll just tell Gingerbread who's in the chat. Okay, so at f3, king d2, and again a slight mistake. Knight takes d3, brilliant move. Oh, hi there, Gingerbread Man, also on Twitch. Knight takes d3 was brilliant because it opens up the e4 square. And queen h4, and then this, and the queen is trapped. If he takes here, knight to e4 wins the queen. So this game was played yesterday, but it was such an interesting game, and no one actually streamed it, so I wanted to go over it. So unfortunately, he played this, which wasn't quite as strong, but it did win the queen. And yeah, it's too much. Oh, even here, things are getting still quite dangerous. Check, king here. Yeah, I think he's just about. He's blocking off the e file, and there's not. White doesn't really have anything. Bishop at b5. Just notice the harassing the white queen, and yeah, white doesn't have anything. And then okay, so we get into the final position. Black had two queens. Black had two queens to mate with, and a nice mate he found. Queen at c2, even sacrificing the knight as well, because 2 pawns are enough to mate. So hi there, Robbie GM. He says after queen takes g5, you said knight e4 wins the queen, but it's illegal because it's pinned, right? Ah, okay. Let's see. So in this position here, maybe I made a mistake. Let's see. So I was saying knight takes d3, queen here. So, okay, I was completely wrong. Yeah, okay, so there's no knight here. So g5, queen takes g5. Yes, it is pinned. Okay, so it is just the same bishop f4. I guess, okay, so I was wrong about this completely. But I guess it's the point is this d3 square is more important to remove than the d5 square. Yeah, but good point. Sorry, didn't notice this pin. So it's the same pattern, but okay. But what do we sense from this first game? Just looking through it, Jasugi99 playing quite conservatively with a6 as black, but also getting out of theory by doing so. But also quite conservative in not going for this knight takes f2 sack, which, as we saw, followed up by bishop c5. Black has loads of pieces in hand, streaming in, so that would have been really strong. So, because he wasn't quite as aggressive as he might have been, there were some hairy things he had to be careful of. He had to be careful of queen takes here, sacks, and so on, which is why he had to defend. But ultimately, pieces are better than queens, and does win the queen, and solidifies, and wins game 1 very nicely. So that was game 1 of the match. Let's turn to game 2. Oh, game 2 I think is the most beautiful game. One of the most beautiful games of the CWC. F6, this is played quite a lot, and Jasugi99 had something planned, which actually I haven't seen before, which is just e4. Why can't you just take it? And then backing off. So it's a gambit. Knight d7, bishop c4. And now a key move for black is to play e6. This square is, you have to defend this square. You might say, oh, well, there's no worry, white doesn't have any pawns or anything in hand, and just continue. Turns out this is a grave mistake. I'll leave the engine on just for people who want to just be absolutely sure. And this is a brilliant move. Queen to h5 check. But at g6, so Kingswitcher being super solid, unfortunately, queen takes bishop. And surprisingly, the best move here for black is knight takes bishop and not taking the queen at all. Queen e6, threatening mate in 1. And actually, not even giving up the queen is actually the best approach. Taking 2 pieces for that queen and threatening mate again. And knight here doesn't even work because you can just take it, so you have to move the queen somehow. But if you move the queen, you can either get a knight fork, so that's no good. And if you move the queen here, you have bishop d3 and there's nothing to block that queen. Black only has queens in hand. So, backing off, Kingswitcher did the more obvious thing to do, which is to take the queen, but now it's basically forced mate. I mean, the engine can't see it, but bishop f7, bishop here check, bishop here check, only queens in hand, so blocking with the queen is no good, so here. Pawn here check, maybe you could sort of delay the mate with knight takes d5 at this point, bishop takes, king back, knight here, king here, bishop takes pawn, king here, and then grab this knight. And now it's sort of mate in 9 because you're threatening knight at a6 and knight at c6, and black only has queens to defend with. So if he does defend, if he does defend, you're just picking up a queen, and queen's no good to defend with. So we're going to see that actually theme quite a lot. Throughout this series, Jasugi99 is happy to give up queens for a great attack, and queens are not very good defenders. So back to this position. Yeah, so black could have given up the knight, but instead tries to keep running. Bishop here check. And again, the king's got 2 choices, run forward or run back. He chose to run back. Running forward wasn't much better. You just check, check. Yeah, so it's not actually forced mate, but what you can do is just grab that knight, and now there are 2 threats. There's knight at c5 checkmate, or push b5 here, and then just turn the music back on, and then knight at g3 checkmate. And again, you have a queen in hand, so you could defend, in theory, you could defend both mates with the queen. Say, for example, you know, you could defend it with the queen with, say, queen at b5 or something, but you just take the queen, and then there's no way of defending the mate. So queens are not very good defenders. So that's if the king had come forward. What actually happened in the game is he stepped back, and that's a very nice alternative. The knight comes in, then the bishop, and then actually Clearcast watching noticed actually a slightly neater mate than happened in the game. Pawn here, bishop here, if there's any blocker you take it, and pawn here checkmate. And this is cutting off this diagonal. So the 2 bishops cut off this square, and the 2 pawns cut off this row. What happened in the game was slightly less neat, because it's knight here, and he could have run like this, and he'll eventually get mated as well, but he ran here, so it was quite simple. If he'd... yeah. So there's a slightly longer mate if he runs to g5 first, because then you have to go bishop e3 check, king to h4, and then when you go g3 check, the problem is he's threatening to run to f3, so slightly more messy. So you have to do g3, king g4, bishop takes pawn. If he had done this, if here, then knight b to d4, king e5, bishop f4 would be mate. And anyway, so there are alternatives. If king to f3, you always have knight coming back to g1, and this is getting a little bit messy, but you're eventually going to get him. It's quite a funny little construction. So Gingerbread Man, that was all forced? Absolutely, yeah, absolutely. All the way back from... So let's just look at this game from the beginning. It's a really good one to know. If if your opponent goes f6 and you sack a pawn like this just to get really fast development, if you're black in this position, you better play e6, because if you don't, this is all forced now. Check, takes, and yeah, again, black's last chance to survive, sort of, is knight takes bishop, but it doesn't work because of queen e6. And you're happy to give up the queen. With bishop here, check, bishop takes knight, take back. But if you take the queen, yeah, this is all just forced. Bishop here, check, he has to step forward, bishop here, check, can't block, you lose the queen. Pawn here, check. Again, you could go knight takes pawn, but then white has another knight, and we saw that wasn't good mating. Here, again, you only have a queen to block with, not much good. So, knight here, check, bishop here, check. And then the neatest thing to do is actually g3. g3. And h3 checkmate. So, a beautiful mate that, that Jasugi99 found. Really beautiful game. Okay, game 3, so I'll just turn on to the next track. So this time, and that means I need to turn ads off for a moment. So this game, Jasugi99 was black again, and we see a repeat of this opening. And as we said, so giving up takes a knight and a bishop for the queen, and as we said last time, knight takes f2 is very strong, but they didn't realize that in the live match. And I just need to skip these ads so we can. I'm hoping that some nicer music comes up. Okay. This time, Jasugi99 tries knight d6 instead of knight f6. And okay, add f6, just solidifying his center. And again, knight f4, so hitting g2, maybe picking up a bishop if he ever wants it. Not really developing his queen side yet. Bishop at g4, c4, okay, going in for the sack. Bishop takes f3, this is rather uncomfortable because if queen takes, obviously you get knight here, check. So king takes, e4, bishop takes e4. I can turn on the engine for you so you guys can get a feeling. He's got a slight edge in this position, and it's just straight from the opening. Giving up the queen for the two pieces is a strong trade. Okay, let's turn the music back on again if I can. I don't know. This is sort of disappointing music. Let's just try something else. I thought I'd found something nice, but anyway, never mind. We'll see how it goes. Okay, this is okay. So, he's got the two pieces for the queen, which is actually quite good, which is why he has a slight edge. And yeah, he's got another now piece, so bishop d6, knight at d4, rook e8. Okay, so here actually black has a very strong move, which is at d2. And if the rook moves anywhere, bishop at c3. Get the queen back and get the queen back, and your king is kind of in the center of the board. Maybe rook takes, and yeah, black is doing very well here. Moves like queen here, apparently. Probably knight to c2. We've also got a pawn in hand. Maybe we can do something with that. Yeah, I'm not sure exactly. But okay, this is quite nice for black. Black hasn't got many pieces on the board. White hasn't got many pieces on the board. What was knight at d4 about? I think it's I think it's defending f3, yeah. And he's thinking of backing off, and the problem is, yeah, he was thinking of f3, e2. e2 should be fine, but f3 is quite weak. So knight at d4 he played. Rook here. White's trying to cut off the e file. But okay, instead of rook there, as I was saying, at d2 was really strong. At d2 and bishop f3, quite creative, hitting the pawn and the knight. But okay, rook e8 looks good. It's blocked off. Takes, takes. Now, we have to be careful though, because notice the black king is also not so safe. So even better than knight takes e6, there was also bishop at g4. And king can't run or you take the queen, so he has to block in some way. And then you could actually go bishop takes. This is a way of just playing it in a more solid way. And you could say, well, you're losing a knight that way, but yeah, you're getting some nice compensation this way. Oh gosh. So where were we? We were bishop takes d3 comes, queen takes, develop. You're trying to swap off a knight and put a knight here. Okay, this would be another way of doing it. Okay, so he did knight takes e6. That looks decent.
Searching for music for your next video? Then you need to check.
And king runs out the way, which is also sensible. Takes, takes. Knight at d2 check. King to g1. Bishop at f7. Okay, so actually there's something really dangerous in this position. So bishop at f7 is a bit of a mistake. So black is actually black was doing quite nicely in this position. But it turned out, say, bishop here check takes was necessary. So with knight takes and knight takes here, this open d file is actually suddenly becoming a big issue. He was probably worried about pawn at f7, so that's why he plays bishop at f7. Knight here check and bishop at f7, because pawn at f7 is obviously going to kill black. But what he doesn't recognize, and which Kingswitcher didn't recognize either, is the power of c5. Now this is not obvious at all, because you'd say, well, why not just knight takes c5? Okay, but this is why not. Because this rook is not actually defending e7. If you go here check, rook takes, queen here check, like so, this is checkmate, because the bishop is pinned. So you'd have to step back with the rook, but then you can just sack your queen, pawn here check, and the knight is checkmate. So the point is the rook is not defending e7. Ah, hi there, Abhijit Go, my new. So before Marlon Cameron would be the one who watched all my videos, and these days it's Abhijit Go. So that what black could go is king to d7, and this doesn't work very well either. King to d7 is apparently also mate. Sorry. King to d7 is also mate because of queen to d7 takes, takes, king takes, put another bishop on e7, king to d7, just chase that king out, rook at d8, chase him out, maybe capture another bishop along the way. If you take like this, we're going to go queen takes, and that's not going to be good, so let's just run. But we still got a knight in hand, knight c3, king here, and I want to go queen here, checkmate, but I can't because the knight's covering it. But it's okay, I've just simply got b4, checkmate. So, really, so basically Jasugi99 has got himself into a really hairy pickle because this knight doesn't defend this pawn, but to see why it doesn't is quite tricky, because the reason it doesn't defend this pawn is because this rook doesn't really defend e7. So it required some deep thinking from Kingswitcher to recognize this, and he didn't quite see it. So he's still thinking of trying to control this diagonal to get a pawn on f7. And black, okay, now that's providing extra coverage for e7. So that's really useful. And it's also hitting the queen, obviously. Still, just takes, and this would have been strong, actually. So but Kingswitcher backed off, and that's the end of the game. I mean, now it's Jasugi99 taking over with all these minor pieces. It's hitting with tempo. Hitting that queen with tempo, we'll see, is a kind of theme of this match. Jasugi99 gave away queens, and Kingswitcher held on. Oops. Kingswitcher held on to these queens too greedily, and at the end you lose the queen. Okay, how do you checkmate with pawn and queen? You often leave the queen for close to the edge of the board. So, actually, even better than what Jasugi99 did is you leave the queen to the edge for the edge of the board. The rook cuts things off, and that's mate in 1. If you put on the queen too soon, yeah, you can find a mate too, but slightly more complicated. So Jasugi99 took over, and that was 3 games to love. Moving on to game 4. So white d4, d5. Remember in game 2, it was a rather embarrassing game after f6. So this time Kingswitcher went for h6. Bishop h4, g5, and this is what I'd play as black actually. I think this is good. Bishop d3. This bishop's a bit loose on f5, which is why there are 2 choices in this kind of position, either to put the knight in the way or just to swap. I'll put the engine on just so people can see. So it's a very solid position. Notice he's going for c7. This is a nice counter. If the king is still in the center of the board, you can, with sort of tempo, defend c7. Knight here, so he's trying to get his king out of the way as quickly as possible. And f4. So f4 is a slightly unusual move, but it does create a weakness on e3, but it's good. It's not necessarily Stockfish's first choice, but it's a good move. g4, a3. Okay, now I think in this sort of position, neither side's got any material in hand, so there's an element of not quite sure what to do here. b5. Something maybe which white could have done is actually f5, and that provides a square for the knight to come in and really put pressure on this. So then you can take this, you can go knight here and then take this knight and take this pawn. You've got 2 pieces on it and then only the queen defending it. So this would be a and then another thing is, the knight can't ever take this. If the knight took the bishop, there's always the threat of a knight landing here, forking the queen and the bishop. So that would be slightly annoying. So just to show an example line, bishop could back off to get rid of that fork. But then you could take, knight here. Okay, so this would be an aggressive response from black, just to go on a counter-attack. And if you want to be really solid, put a new bishop on to defend. Takes, and take this pawn. This would be actually a really good way of playing things. And white king is actually very solid. You can always put a pawn on f2 to defend. And the black king, not so solid. So, that would have been quite a nice... that would be the aggressive way to play for white with f4. But instead, bishop h4 happened. Bishop takes knight. You got a choice, take with the knight, take with the pawn. The reason why Jasugi99 takes with the pawn is the philosophy of his position is I want to get all my pieces near my king and in this attack. And this part of the board just doesn't matter. Although there is some case for, I don't know, yeah. There's a case for either. So this is a very nice player from Kingswitcher. Because this bishop is loose, this pawn is loose. Jasugi99 kind of has to just step back and go, yep, good move, Kingswitcher. Takes, bishop at f3, quite aggressive, takes. Maybe that was too aggressive, maybe that was a slight mistake if I was annotating, that's just a slight mistake. Going a bit too hard. And white's Jasugi's defending, basically. And now maybe he's got a minute on the clock. he had to defend this knight. He didn't, so he just hangs the knight to try and yeah. This is just bad basically. Strong. So black has no follow up, but if he just went king h1, he'd only need a pawn to mate. So white's still actually okay, but I think queen takes e2 is a much stronger move. Queen takes e2. So the point is black. Okay, he has a queen, but he actually doesn't have much material. Abhijit Go says he'll play the weekly Crazyhouse Arena after this. He was watching Mugwort's Crazyhouse Blindfold games today. Also saw Bugzilla match in the afternoon streamed by Mugwort. Yeah, that was wonderful to watch. Yeah, Mugwort's was streaming. Okay, so notice how Kingswitcher doesn't have much material, and I think it's kind of philosophy throughout this match is Jasugi99 is quite happy to give him queens, but didn't want to give him too much material. He's a good buckhouse player, don't want to give him stuff to work with. So after this, takes. He has a pawn though, which is annoying. Maybe pawn at f3 would have been annoying. Pawn at f3, pawn at h3. You'd have to go knight to e3 to defend the mate. But okay, Jasugi's Kingswitcher's just going for the slow build up. And he defends. Queen takes pawn, he's trying to pick up some material. Bishop here, f3, bishop b4. So here actually a really strong move for white, much stronger, was actually knight g4, just going straight in for mating ideas, because g7 is undefended. At g7 put another knight here, and so on. But it looks like he wants to get a queen first. He wants to get a queen and then go for the mating attack. Doesn't want to give away the bishop, so he backs off. Terra Incognita, is this game 2? This is game 4. Yeah. We saw game 2. Game 2 was the best game. You're going to have to go back after the stream and rewatch game 2. Game 2 is the highlight. So he's just trying to hold material. Why this? I don't understand this move. Yeah, this was not a good move. I think it was maybe a mouse slip, or just maybe he's trying to cut off this queen from the action somehow. It wasn't a good move because now suddenly Kingswitcher's winning. Because queen here check threatens checkmate, and white doesn't have any pieces on the board that really defend it. If you take, and the mate threat's renewed, the only defense is this. And that doesn't work because queen takes pawn. You're threatening to hit the knight, and queen here is checkmate. Oh, having said that, you could do knight here. Yeah, so knight here would be kind of, but black apparently is still completely winning because of this. And it's just force mate. The point is if you take the queen here and rook here, rook here, and you can't take it because queen takes is checkmate, but if you go here, queen takes pawn is checkmate. So just attacking the defender is so strong, but just look at the time. He has 2.9 seconds on the clock to find queen takes d4. He doesn't quite see it fast enough, so he plays this, and in one move, Jasugi99 is back in control. Because now, when he does queen takes here, knight here comes, knight here check. And Kingswitcher flags. If he does do this, the problem is you could even just take the rook, threatening mate here. And even if you go rook takes bishop, stopping in the mate, there's going to be forced mate here. Oh yeah, there's rook at h7, even simply mate. So just suddenly it's impossible to defend. Suddenly white's attack is faster. So after this just one move, bishop takes pawn, suddenly white's got a faster attack. So you go here, you don't have time to go queen takes knight. You probably have to take this knight basically to stay alive. So 4-love to Jasugi99. Game 5, and we follow the same opening as game 1 and game 3. Both kings unsafe, as Abhijit said. Yes, I think that's sort of been a... So again, pawn sacrifice, but this time... Notice, it's a pawn sacrifice, but black does get open bishops. But it's very risky to go for a pawn sacrifice in Crazyhouse because notice your opponent gets an extra pawn and you're also a pawn. You've got a pawn less. But Jasugi99 plays like this and he knows what he's doing. Now, instead of going knight takes pawn, bishop takes king takes this sort of thing, which is not so good in this position, because obviously this is just a pawn, not a whole piece. Before it was a whole piece he was getting. So queen takes pawn, bishop takes, pawn takes. Okay, so white's doing quite nicely here, attacking the queen. But what black does have is some nice pressure on g2. Takes, knight c6, just developing. Takes, e4. Okay, now I think a critical mistake is knight h4 at d4, hitting the knight. And here's a critical mistake in the match, in this game, from Kingswitcher. This is the kind of position where black doesn't have that much material, and what he really wants is diagonals to get in on f3, g2, h3. Why are you feeding him a diagonal? Like, just get your king, get your king back to safety or something. Apparently king h1 is better. Why is king h1 better? I guess it's out of the pin. And then you put a pawn on g2 next. Black has nothing in hand. I mean, if you just do something like this, just pawn out at g2. Good, white's winning. But instead, Kingswitcher gave away a pawn. He had, maybe already he's got quite low on time, only 24 seconds, when he made this mistake. So, pawn takes knight comes. Terra Incognita says, please upload VOD on YouTube. Okay, well you should know that all my analysis streams are on YouTube. I've got about 3 weeks of continuous listening there. Is Pi Chess happening? Yeah, so Crazyhouse 960 is happening in theory, but not happening in practice. So people weren't interested. There's too much happening. So maybe there was one game in the Crazyhouse 960 League, and or there were 3 or 4 matches, but I haven't been covering it. There've been no top matches. Okay, this is extremely dangerous because there could be at h3, at g2, potentially some sort of knight pawn mate. Queens might even come off in this position, and black has initiative. So pawn at f3 here is good, but Jasugi found arguably an even nicer move, knight at d4, just threatening at f3. No, threatening f3, threatening e2, and again I think Kingswitcher is a bit low on time here. He gets the free piece. Bishop at f3. Why not queen takes? Because queen takes, you just have knight here, check, picking up the queen. So king takes. Knight comes in. Notice the knight can't even come in here because f3, and you could give up the queen, but that's not great. And if you do this, you could pick up a pawn here, knight takes pawn, checkmate. Beautiful. Noticing the queen was cutting off here, so you had to go back. So that's why Kingswitcher went back to here, and now you're just losing a whole queen. So okay, so this is a bit of a distraction, and the rest is just taking, and he only has pawns left, and he resigns. So that was game 5. Yeah, the GB Tammy Crazyhouse 960 was the last match to happen, and I didn't put it on YouTube because I don't think I gave it as good a coverage as it deserved. So, okay. This game, notice Kingswitcher, instead of going for g5, he goes, well, how about g6? Let's play a bit more solid. G5 is, I like g5. So this is going to be interesting. This is black playing very, very solid. Now, wait a second. We could always take here. The problem is, I guess, rook comes in, so there's no point. Let's just turn the engine on so we know what... Apparently it is worthwhile just taking. Seems dubious. There's also bishop takes pawn. So instead he defends. Okay, so black's actually doing quite nicely here. Backs off. Okay, now this to me is the critical mistake in this game. Such a tiny mistake from Kingswitcher. But by playing b6, he's created a weakness on b7. And just look how Jasugi99 will just ruthlessly exploit. It's not even a kingside weakness, queenside weakness. He's just going to ruthlessly exploit it. Attacking this pawn. Doesn't even want the rook, doesn't want the exchange. Okay, I'm going to take the pawn. So he wins an exchange. What's he going to do with the queen? I think the problem he's afraid is there are sort of ideas like bishop f3. So he's proactively defending g2 here. So knight f4 is good. And Kingswitcher just desperately wants a pawn for f3. h3 is well guarded, so f3. Okay, so Jasugi hits the rook. Black doesn't want to waste time moving the rook. Although maybe that was the best thing to do. Just pawn at c7 apparently is good. Okay, but he did this. And queen takes rook. So Kingswitcher is trying to give up the queen. So why is he doing that? He's trying to give up the queen because then... I don't know. Takes... This looks quite good for white. But Jasugi turns down the queen. He says, no, I don't want the queen. And he sacks his queen back. And this is actually really good. Really good queen sack from Jasugi. And quite interesting in terms of the match. Like every single game in this match, almost, I think, Jasugi99 has given up the queen. It's almost like before the match, he's like he's placed a bet with someone. I bet I can give up my queen every game. So g6 and b6 moves. Black played normal chess in this game. Yeah, I think black really played quite well, but slight weakness with the b6 move. But now that with the giving up the queen, oof, now that the pain is coming. Now the pain is coming for black. Knight takes bishop. Now this is a dangerous move from black. Dangerous move from black because obviously you do not take this queen. That knight was a critical defender. If you take that queen, you're going to get mated. Pawn here check and queen here checkmate. So queen takes knight is a challenge. Mate, you better mate me. But white's got enough material to mate. The key is just to get the king on a suitable square. He takes that rook. Knight here check, rook here check, rook takes bishop. Rook here check, and knight here checkmate. Abhijitgo says, Oppa said queen is worth 1 minor and pawn, not even 2 minor pieces, although it depends on the position. Yeah, I think also the key is, when you sack the queen for, say, a piece and a pawn, you're sacking it also for like a weakness of some kind, and also for not only weakness of positional weakness, but also position. So in this position here, pawn and piece, it's not just a pawn and a piece, is it, right? Pawn and piece and initiative of hitting the queen, and you have a weakness now on c7, which you're hitting with this knight. You had none of that. In this position here, black's completely solid. So it's not just a pawn and a piece, it's pawn and a piece plus initiative, plus weakness. So, yes, a queen is worth pawn and a piece plus weakness easily. Definitely. So, okay, so obviously you can't take that queen, but you have to find the mate, and he finds the mate. Nicely done. Game 7. So at this point he's 6 love up. We're going to see a repeat of the previous game. Okay, this is sort of position. The bishops are open. Black's managed to get the h3 attack in first, so I think black's doing quite nicely here. Computer says slight edge. Bishop takes rook, makes sense. Bishop takes knight. Okay, but white is getting some counterplay. It's kind of annoying. Bishop takes pawn, pawn takes pawn. notice if king here, then this comes in, so that's uncomfortable. So slightly uncomfortable position for black. Not sure what the best move is here. So it's uncomfortable, but Stockfish actually likes black. So bishop e3 came, takes, rook here, and bishop here, just trying to defend. There's a really good move for black in this position. It's actually bishop at c5, because it controls this diagonal which your king is on, as well as having a look at the opponent diagonal which your opponent king is on. And so it controls this diagonal before your opponent gets a hold of it. Okay, by playing this, okay, you can defend with the pawn, it's okay, it's not too bad, but it's slightly worse. So suddenly your opponent's got pressure on this diagonal. If you've gone bishop to c5, there's no pressure on him. Knight e4, he's going to have to defend a little bit better now. Bishop at g4, and now there's a very strong move from black which would have really won the game, which is pawn here check, and the idea is if you just go king h1, there's knight here check and picking up the queen. So it's a philosophy of winning the opponent queen is, so giving up the queen on your terms is fine, but if you win the opponent queen, often it can be the end of it. You can soon find mate afterwards. So this pawn f2 idea, what else could white do? White could go king here, but then there's knight h4. Oh, but then you could go back to h1 and say, look, you haven't got a knight anymore. Oh, we do have a knight. So that's kind of annoying. White could still go king h3 and still kind of... but then we could take that knight and go this. This is a very nice sort of idea. So we're threatening pawn takes bishop, opening up this rook file, and the bishop can't move back because it's pinned. It could take here, but then knight takes bishop, and we're threatening another bishop here. Takes, and opening up this rook file. So this has been a very strong attack with pawn at f2, which is quite a natural move actually in this position. But Jasugi99 went for knight takes g5, which is also decent. Takes. Why does he do this? It's apparently good move. I think that, yeah, the pressure on this is too great. So he gives up the queen. He wants to give up the queen for two pieces. Yeah, that's what he wants to do. He wants rook takes queen, bishop takes. Yeah. And then white's not doing too badly. Queen at g5, pawn at g4, sort of thing. But instead, black wants to take the queen on his own terms. So now, if bishop takes knight, queen here, check. If bishop takes knight, there must be mate here. Why can't I see it? Queen at d2, king h4. Okay, I'll cheat. King h4. So what have we got in hand? Just pawns. So we could go rook here, threatening pawn here, checkmate. So if bishop takes rook, pawn here is checkmate. So he has to go here. And then we go g6. This is quite long-winded. Okay, and if you back off, pawn here is still checkmate. If you do this, we can use a pawn here, king takes pawn, queen here, checkmate. Okay, so we get there in the end. Phew. So that's why I just lost my track. So knight takes queen. So that's why the bishop doesn't take that knight. Abhijit Go says, is opening theory in atomic? So knight takes, pawn here check, just throwing in a check. Does white have enough? Nope, not quite enough. And in this position, actually there's a slightly cleaner mate, which is rook h5, here, queen here check, and bishop here checkmate. Or if rook h5 and the king tries to run back, just queen h4, pawn here is checkmate. If you try and run back here, you got queen takes pawn. If you run back immediately, queen takes pawn, king here, pawn here, and that's also checkmate. Abhijit goes asking, is opening theory in atomic harder than in Crazyhouse. I'd say. So the thing about Atomic is you can't pre-move, like move one. So okay, well, I'll just quickly show what happened in the endgame, and then I'll show what I mean. Rook takes bishop, bishop takes, pawn here, check, queen here. Very nice mate here found. Like even the engine doesn't see this mate here for black, but 12-teen has a mate here. Okay. I mean, the engine found another mate earlier, but now there's actually a mate, forced mate here. Bishop here, check, king goes back. The reason he doesn't go here, because always pawn here and pawn takes rook would be mate. Okay, so it looks like there's no way of continuing. But no, queen takes rook, and rook at h1. Brilliant find from Jasugi99. Pawn here, check. And again, if you were to go king here, just pawn takes rook is queen, queen g2 is checkmate. So he's trying to do this. Gets a knight. That's tricky, isn't it? And what Kingswitcher should have done is backed off, like here. You don't want to go to h1 because rook h2 is mate. So king to h1, you just go rook here, king here, bishop here is mate. He should have done king here just to try and fight a bit longer. Then you go bishop here, check, bishop takes pawn, check, bishop here, check, and you can't take it. Oh, his rook f2 is mate. Oh, but if you keep running, then pawn here, bishop here, bishop takes pawn, and knight here is checkmate. Okay, so the game could have gone on a bit longer, but instead, Kingswitcher just ate that rook. So ate that bishop, and rook here was checkmate. So yeah, Atomic. Imagine this is Atomic. You can't pre-move your first move. If your opponent does knight f3, you better do f6 to stop the mate. But if you pre-moved f6, you're going to get embarrassed. Check. Here, fork. Now what does that just illustrate? And this, by the way, this pattern, I think, for those just starting Atomic, that's just going to be the first pattern you learn. The queen coming out here, and a fork on here and here. So you could do this, but then queen here is check, and queen takes pawn, blows up the king. So what does that just first thing tell you? It tells you that in Atomic you have to be accurate. You have to get it right. If you make one mistake, that's the end of the game. There is no coming back. You lose your queen in Atomic, you are finished. So in Atomic, it's very important to learn to know if my opponent plays this, I play that. If my opponent plays this, I play that. So this idea in normal chess of corresponding moves. And you get corresponding moves like in pawn endgames, but in Atomic you get it right from the opening, because knight here check is already threatening a mate. So you have corresponding moves, which are very important in standard chess endgames, straight from the opening. If he plays this, I play this. If he plays this, I play this. So is it harder? Yeah, you have to be accurate. I've done like a 3-hour Atomic stream. Like if you watch that stream, then you'll know. Then I think my view is that will take people straight to 1800 Atomic. I think. And I managed to get 1900 after making that stream, so that's my advertisement for Atomic. So and that'll give you like a basics of opening theory. So you have to prepare forced lines, as Abhijit is saying. Both sides you have to know your forced lines. You have to know because there are less accurate lines, but then they're secondary lines and tertiary lines, but you have to know whatever it is. You have to know the corresponding move. There might be less good moves, but you have to know at least one of the top good moves in every position, or else trouble. Otherwise, you could be mated in less than 10 moves quite easily, and that's not going to be true. In Crazyhouse, you can lose a queen. You can lose a queen and fight back. Yeah, and that's not going to happen in Atomic. So game 8, and we see a repeat of the very solid setup, which actually served Kingswitcher well, I think. Gingerbread Man says black openings in Crazy House can be disastrous easily also. You're right, yeah, you're right. Against e4, you can get into some disasters quite easily, yeah. In d4, d5, it's just, you just play, it's a bit easier. No, yeah, absolutely. But you're probably also thinking at a slightly higher level. You're not going to be beaten, even in e4, e5, you're not going to be beaten by a 1600 if you just play normal principled looking moves. But as you get better and better, you do have to know your openings a bit better. And as you go, black can play a6 on move 1. Yeah, absolutely. So this is actually already uncomfortable for black, because actually the best move here for black is actually to give up the queen. I don't think Jasugi would have liked that, by the way, having the queen, although he has got a lot of pieces with the queen. So actually white's doing very well here. But what Kingswitcher did was worse, because now he can't take back with the queen because of the fork. So this is just already lost, actually. I said it's lost, but I'm just looking at the engine and it's just saying plus. I thought it's a whole piece. He's a whole piece up, but apparently it's not that much. Okay, so he's a whole piece up, and he's playing really solid stuff. King h1, bishop c8. Okay, now at this point I'm going like, both sides are like trying not to give material. Queen f1, rook b8. Okay, now at this point, a3. Like, sure, that's a useful move. Not really, but... is he a piece up? Oh yeah, he's not a piece up. Okay, so let's wind back. What did I get wrong here? Oh, he's just a pawn up, right? Takes the pawn, takes. Okay, it's just a pawn up, yeah. It's just a pawn up, exactly. So it's just a pawn up, and he's just trying to play with an extra pawn and say, I'm better because of my extra pawn. What's actually funny about this position is, I could say, is like neither side has a clue what they're doing. And that's a slightly impolite way of saying it. It's like a3, but what it is, it's actually a game of chicken. It's, I don't want to do anything in this position, what are you going to do? And then I want to take advantage of that. So it's like, I don't want to do any trades. I want you to do the trades, and then I'll use those pieces to do something. Like, I want you to be the one who does something, and I'll react. And you see the next few moves: a3, king h7, bishop d1. Like, what kind of move is this? It's like I have no clue what to do move, and then withdrawing this bishop. Okay, so what should... Both sides are just wasting time, not really having a clue what to do. What should they have done? What white could have done is maybe do this. Takes. Try and get some pressure in on e6. That's something productive. But, okay. What could black have done? Instead of... He's just gone king h7, which actually makes a lot of sense, by the way. Because white actually has a lot of hidden pressure on this g file. So king h7 was actually quite a good move. And after bishop d1, which is not a good move, really, it's just clearly wasting time. Both sides, 36 seconds, 145. Maybe just trying to burn this clock down a bit. What could black have done? Trade. And kind of annoying. Putting pressure on f3, takes. Put pressure on this knight. So why is that annoying? Because I guess if we just do normal looking moves like this, then maybe the bishop takes knight. The knights are coming in here, maybe, yeah. Bishop takes f4, knight coming in here. So this is actually uncomfortable for white. And the king on h7 actually is a lot better position, so g6 is secure, and there are no nasties. So, okay, instead Kingswitcher went back to g8, saying I don't have a... and 12 team continues. And then he goes back to h7, woohoo! G3. That's actually quite a good move, because that knight's trapped. knight f5, so he wins a knight for a pawn, so now he is a full piece up. e4, backs off. h4, okay, so slightly risky in that he's opening up squares around his king, but they're all well defended. And I think this is the key point coming up now. This is actually quite a dangerous attack. This seems scary on the face of it, because if you move the rook, another pawn lands here, and queens, and it's actually very difficult to see how to defend. Where can the rook go to defend this from queening? But what he recognizes is actually, I don't need to worry about that queening, because I'm just going to go straight on this attack on g6. And this attack is too fast. This queen can't get into the action, because this is actually quite a... So this stupid looking move, bishop d1, turns out to be a winning move. It locks this queen out of the game. It creates a kind of a lock. All that matters is what king is totally secure behind like a double barrier. And there's really no defense of this. So you go here, another pawn here. That was the pawn the rook just captured over here. There's really no defense. He's just broken in. Captures the rook, captures the bishop. Bishop here, bishop takes, knight here, knight here. Okay, so actually here there was a really clean way of finishing it, which is h7. And amazingly, if you go knight here is checkmate. Remember, 2 knights 3 away control a 2x2 square. Very beautiful little pattern to remember. But if king takes pawn, well, we then have a discovery, and the point of this discovery is to cut off this rook, and also to cut off the king from getting to g8. So the king has to... You can block, where you just take. You can go back, but knight here is checkmate. And Gingerbread Man, maybe that's why 12-teen withdrew his bishops. Well, it's looking 20 moves ahead, and this is absolutely beautiful, says Ladidor. Yes, indeed. And Abhijit says, yeah, my name's Abhijit, not Abhijit Go. Yeah, sorry. I call Marlon's Cameron Marlonk, because it's Marlon C, but it's just Marlon. And Go is the game you play. Yes. So like I'm not okay, I'm okay, just okay, not okay, Crazyhouse in that sense. Okay. So he's really just crashed through. Yeah, just people who want to see it again. How did he crash through? He's just won an extra pawn, and he's just got too much pressure on these light squares. Breaks through, and just remember, because he's attacking, exchange when you're attacking, and just slightly better move here was at h7. That would have been really killed it. But okay, this instead, rook at the back rank, and maybe a slightly messy finish aid, as he's just staying very solid in slightly low time pressure. Like there's no way of defending that knight. He said, well, I got this. Oh, but then I'm going to do this. Just you got 2 queens now, and you're just trying to throw another check, Probably Kingswitcher played here, and this is just checkmate. The 2 queens are useless. Probably king here would have been a little bit more of a fight, but you go pawn here, check. There's no point taking this pawn, because then rook here, check, and pawn here is checkmate. So probably take the rook, but then pawn here, and you have to take the queen. Yeah, that would be checkmate anyway. So who is Jasugi? Jasugi is the old 12-teen. He's a Canadian, must be 18 or so. He's a national master. He was a national master at the age of 14 and basically stopped playing chess over the board at the age of 14 after becoming a national master. In other words, he's one of those national masters who's actually a lot stronger than some grandmasters. Do you know his name? Yeah, his name is Yanak Awatramani. That's not gonna... yeah. And he's probably the best Bughouse player in the world. And he's trying to now become the best Crazyhouse player in the world. But he's got Opperwaisen to defeat to prove that. I'll just write in the chat. The first name is correct. The surname is that one. Yeah. Okay, now game 9. So it's 8-love now. He's been top of the Crazyhouse game for several years now, actually. Has Jasugi99. So it's supposed to be Jasugi, I was told just the other day, is a combination of JA from his name and sugar, because sugar's sweet. That's what I was told. So slightly different openings this time from white, and this is a really beautiful defense here of these two knights by Kingswitcher, because if you take this knight, there's a discovered double check. King here forced, queen here checkmate. Really beautiful, beautiful way of defending. Queen at e2. So instead f5, knight g3. Actually, a really strong move here from white is knight g5, because you're already threatening sacks on f7, and with queens potentially coming off the board, black's actually, if I just look at, already plus 10 for white in this position. Okay, knight g3 actually gave black some chances. Queen c4 defends the knight, but also looking at this square, and if you take that square, you're then threatening queen takes bishop. So, okay, you're not really threatening that because the queen defends c7. But so what are you threatening? I guess you're just defending your knight. Okay, here he gives up. He gives his knight for 2 pawns. Actually, this is actually okay for white. So there's been a queen trade, but white's king. Okay, so is white's king? It's an uncomfortable position that you've only got a queen in hand. If you had a pawn in hand, black would be doing great. Just put a pawn on f3 and you're probably winning. Just to do a test of that, by the way. Like if I go rook takes pawn, rook here, and then it's black's move. Okay, you're still not winning. Okay, I'm completely wrong. So why can't I go add f3 and say I'm winning? Because rook d1, my king is in the center of the board. Why can't I just go bishop d6? e5. Okay. So I think this is actually instructive. It's not only does black not only have a pawn for f3, it's just look at black's pieces. Oops. Oops. They're not developed. That's the problem. Not developing is a problem. Look at white's pieces. Developed. Developed. Knight's out. They both got the same in hand, but white's developed and black's not. And just watch how Kingswitcher now punishes. Doesn't matter how good you are, if you're not developed, you're going to get punished. He starts to develop. Okay, good. And now it's his queen getting harassed and chased around. Very direct, just going straight in for d7. Very hard to defend. So this is actually quite a nice move, because he was looking at the rook, but he's also trying to defend, so you could take, take, and take. Or, sorry, better, even knight takes and take. The reason you want to take with the knight in this position is you don't want to give your opponent diagonal pieces. Okay, he's just desperate. Oh, the problem with this is now he's lost his defender. Didn't quite work out that. That was a bad move. And things are going to go south. Pawn here, takes. Yeah, if you take, you're getting like queen here, check, takes rook, oof, or bishop, even better. So trying to escape. Bishop takes h2, just desperation. You could even take it, but not taking is safer. Black has nothing here. Just only has 3 pawns and a knight. Can't make anything happen on the white king. The direct threat is queen here, check. That's why he does king to e7. Queen here is mating. So if you did something like pawn here, just queen here. Takes, takes, checkmate. Got to watch out for that. So that's why he just steps up with 12 seconds on the clock. And that's no good either, because, yeah, if you take the rook, I think I took with this one. Take the rook, just takes back, and queen comes on, and this is checkmate. And if you don't take the rook, as happened in the game, don't take the knight, this is also just checkmate. Checkmate. So, yeah, really, really strong game from Kingswitcher to avoid the adoption. Queen at e2. I like that move a lot. Yeah, really good defense. And just the way he develops fast. And to be honest, what is 12-teen? What is Jasugi99 famous for? The way he gambits and gives up queen to develop fast. The one game he doesn't develop fast, wow, he got punished for it. So finally, game 10. So slightly different. I'm not quite sure. I mean, I wouldn't take with the G pawn here, but okay, it's good. There are interesting ideas. Okay, so I'll just tell on the end. It looks quite even, this position. Just backs off. Oof, doesn't want to castle into the danger. Okay, but this is not looking so promising for white at all. Well, it wasn't looking promising. So there's some sort of critical mistake being made here. c5. Okay, so c5 is really not a good move. And the move he plays in response is knight takes bishop, but there's actually a really strong... It's the wrong move order, because black has got nothing in hand. The right move order is queen a4 check. You can't... You don't really want to do this. This is bad. Not even takes the queen. You can actually go knight takes c7 check first, king e7, then take the queen, king takes, and you win a whole rook. Wow. King in the middle of the board and a free rook. Okay, so you can't do that. And you could block with the knight. But then knight takes bishop, pawn takes, and you got a free pawn. Queen can't take it because of the knight at c7 fork. Gingerbread Man says, isn't GF recommended? So the Krosky Gambit right from the beginning is... I mean, this is the famous Krosky Gambit. You know, where you just do this and you just ignore it. You know. So that's the way your bishops are very open. But no, having said that, in this game, I'm not saying taking with the g-pawn is bad. It just means you can't really castle easily on this side. But it means white, if he ever castles, you've got some really nice action on him. So I'd say taking here is, you'll have a strong centre. It's true. It's very chessy. I mean, like, this is the sort of thing you want to control the centre, but, well, Crazyhouse isn't all about the centre, it's about the king. So you're committing to keep your king in the centre by doing this, I guess. You're creating a bit of weakness here and here. Let's see what the engine thinks. E takes f6 is black slightly better, yeah. Just because then the bishop now develops, the castle, you've got a safe king. Lovely setup here. So, takes here, I mean, yeah, it just feels, yeah. It's not quite as nice. But after black put all his pieces on, and made committed this and at c5, yeah, so now there is this queen a4 idea. You can just back off and then knight takes bishop. This is just really nasty. You're winning a free pawn, but you're threatening another knight coming into c7. This king is stuck in the center. This is a problem. Okay, but I think 12-teen Jasugi just played this in slightly the wrong order. It's still good. Takes here first, and then bishop here. But now black has a knight to block with. It's not quite as strong. He didn't have to move this knight back. So now this knight's defending this pawn. So he has to build up again, build up pressure again. Knight takes pawn here. What's the idea? The idea is pressure on c6. Queen takes d4. And this is a very creative move, just saying, if you take here, I'm going to get pressure here. To be honest, you could still go here, here, and take here. And this looks scary, but actually it's not the end of the world. Takes, takes. There are no knight checks. Oh, yeah, there is. For a second I thought, oh, but there is this knight check. But this square is defended, so you're lucky. So yeah, g takes f and rook g8 is definitely liked by certain people if you want to get out of opponent preparation, because it's not going to be the main line and it's going to get you into more unfamiliar positions for your opponent. So is Krusky Gambit good in Bughouse? Absolutely, yes. Okay, so there are no knight checks here, so actually this is safe. But bishop takes c6 was played instead. Knight here check, and pawn here, and yeah, what Jasugi missed is there's this annoying check, which actually defends this square. Got to always watch out for those checks. And then bishop takes f4. The queen's hanging the whole time because he doesn't want this at d2 ideas. Something else. Hang on a second. So why does he take with the knight? You could, on first thought, you could say why not take with the pawn? And this actually looks quite promising because then black's keeping up his attack. Yeah, this is really beautiful now. This is game 10, so we're finishing soon. You don't want to take this queen. But it's not pawn at d2 that's the most dangerous move in this position. There's an even stronger move. Knight at c2. Takes, takes, takes. And now with the rook in hand, pawn at d2 is lethal. You don't want to give up the queen, so you step up. Rook at g1, rook at e1 rather, bishop here, whatever, you're going to block with something and I'm going to take it. You're trying to find an escape square. So the point is, even if you take here, takes, if you take the bishop, there's knight here, checkmate, and you can't run back. And if you run back immediately, turns out we have just enough pawns to finish you off. So, going back to here, I think this would be quite a nice thing to see is how deadly a rook is combined with at d2. So knights here check is really lethal. Oh, apparently king e2 is surviving for a few moves at least. Then you have knight to d4, king e1, and then at d2. Okay, so that's also mating apparently. You just go deep enough. So pawn takes bishop. Okay, that looks promising because that keeps the knight in a very aggressive position. It's actually not a good move, and Jasugi99 would have realised it because it opens up a weakness on b7. And you could go here, but oof! Suddenly this attack from white is actually faster than black's attack. Oh, so Ginger Brendan says he has to go. Yep, thanks for watching. Sorry I ran on too long. And Abhijit says, nice recap of the match. Most of the COC is at midnight for me, and it's almost 1 AM now too. Okay, goodbye. Okay, goodbye, Abhijit. Yeah, I'm sorry for going on too long right now because I'm about to finish. But yeah, so then if you'd go, where were we now? Sorry, at b7. So now if you go knight at c2, just takes. This is all cut off, so yeah, this diagonal is cut off, so the attack isn't fast enough. So you'd get something like this, and white's completely winning. Okay, so just to finish off this game, so we're done. Knight here check, pawn here, takes back, queen takes. So what's the idea? Why can't we just take the queen? Because we take the queen, he's trying to give 2 pieces for the queen. And Jasugi99 says, no, I don't want 2 pieces for the queen, I want to have the rook. And queen is now under attack, so it backs off. This is very nice, you check and you win the bishop. What are you trying to do? You're trying to win the queen with at c7 check. So of course queen has to take the knight. Take another pawn. Probably even a better move here is just rook takes pawn, take another pawn. But instead he did this, defending g2. Takes. Again, he's going for g2. And now, white to play and checkmate. 12-team mates Kingswitcher in the final game of that match. Very beautiful. At f7, king takes. Knight here, stopping the king running out. King has to go back. Bishop here, check. King here. And then we get a fork on the rook. He has to step up. All the while this bishop, notice, is cutting off this diagonal. We win the rook with check. We come back. But we don't come back. We got mate in one. So this is a beautiful finish. Who is Jasugi's toughest opponent? In the CWC candidates, it's Chicken Crossroad and GSVC. Chicken Crossroad is an FM in standard chess. GSVC is a very strong international master, 2500 plus, and soon GM. Who is the toughest opponent in general? Obviously, Jan Lee and Oppa would be the traditional toughest opponents, but GSVC and Chicken are tough also. So we've seen here, Kingswitcher played well. He managed to get a game off Jasugi. And we've also seen that Jasugi did give Kingswitcher some chances. So in that sense, but probably the reason he gave him some chances is because he was playing the man. So he played a slightly he's a much better chess player than Kingswitcher. So he played a slightly chessy style in some of these games, like the ones where he's shuffling about, not quite. So against a stronger player like Opera, I think he would have sacked harder in some of these games, and been a bit more. So he played a slightly chessy style, and didn't want to give Kingswitcher pieces because he knows he's a bughouse player, and maybe also slightly he was going for 10-0, and so you play a slightly different style if you're going for 10-0 than if you were going. You probably shouldn't play a slightly different style, but you probably do. He's probably trying to play slightly safer, slightly more materialistic than he should have done. But the result is that he played a very beautiful style of Crazyhouse, just not quite as reckless as he would normally be, and as he would be against a stronger player. Not quite as just all-out chaos on the board. As against Oppa, he will just throw the board. He will throw the table up in desperation to win. And you can't just play this sort of style against Oppa. And yeah, he'll create chaos and hope for the best. That's create a bit more chaos. And against Kingswitcher, why create chaos when if we can just play slow and steady and keep things under control, I can probably win. But Kingswitcher played very well. So the result was actually some very beautiful games. So I hope you enjoyed. I added a little bit of music in the background. I don't normally do that. I don't know if people like that or not, but I thought it'd be more entertaining since this isn't a live match or anything. It's just some analysis. So I hope you enjoyed, and I'll just leave link to my YouTube and a link to my blog. And Sleipnir says the Kartik games are fun to watch. So yeah, they are indeed. But this is also fun to watch. A very sort of controlled aggression. Highlight was definitely game 2. So for those who missed it, who are just joining, I'll just end the stream by just playing through game 2, because game 2 was definitely the highlight of the match. D4, D5. Okay. Counter-attack. Okay. Looks like we're just giving up a pawn. No worries. And as I said, E6 is necessary here. Black played this. Bang. Check. Sacks the queen. That's what should be played. That's what he should be played. That wasn't what played in the game. Kingswitcher took the bait. He says, "Well, you got no pieces in hand. You're not going to mate me. I don't care if I'm on D6. You're not going to mate me." Well, I might not have any pieces in hand, but you want to block with your queen? Didn't think so. You want to block with your queen? Didn't think so. I want to pretend he played this because this is much nicer. You want to block with your queen? Well, I'll take it anyway. And checkmate. Okay, what actually happened in the game was slightly different, because he actually played knight e2 check, which does mate eventually as well. So that was the game. That was the highlight. Chuck Moulton's raiding with a party of 10. Who should I raid then? Because I'm just coming to a close here. But thanks for the raid. Got all these people joining me, and I have to send them off to someone else, which is kind of sad. So, well, I normally stream Crazyhouse. I guess I don't.
To EYN palette, I think they changed the package.
But I was just coming to an end here. That's the only problem. Okay, what I'll do is I'll send you off to. He sometimes streams in Spanish, and he sometimes, I think he streams usually in Spanish. But the reason I'm going to send you off to this guy is, even if you don't watch him, make sure you're subscribed to him on Twitch. And the reason is because International Master GSVC, one of the top Crazyhouse players, often appears on his stream, like in terms of as a co-streamer, especially during the quarantine leagues. Oh, thanks so much, Chuck Moulton, for the tier 1 subscription. 23-month streak. Okay, thanks so much for all the support. I'm going to send you off to Bozovietica94, who's often got GSVC on his stream. And for those who want to see more of my stuff, I'll just quickly drop the link to my YouTube before I send you off to Bozovietica94, and follow Bozovietica so that whenever he's GSVC, who's this very strong Crazyhouse player, is playing chess on his stream, he often live dual streams with him. So on one board he plays, on the other board GSVC plays. So let's go, and thank you guys. I hope you enjoyed the stream. Check it out later on YouTube if you missed it.